What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at The Shining, the 1997 miniseries directed by Mick Garris and adapted for TV by Stephen King, the man who wrote the book. All right, let's waste no time. Let's get right into it. The origins of the Shining miniseries is based off the fact that Stephen King hated, at the time, the Stanley Kubrick adaptation of his source material. Stephen King, found it that the Kubrick adaptation pretty much ripped out the soul of his story. So that's pretty much how this miniseries came to be. Now, the miniseries is divided amongst a lot of people. Some really, really like it and consider it to be superior to the Kubrick version. Other people hate it and think that it's just a piece of crap. Me, I'm in the middle. I don't hate this movie, but I don't think it's a piece of crap either. When comparing it to the first movie, yes. When comparing it to the Kubrick movie, the Kubrick movie is a superior version of The Shining, to me at least. However, that does not mean that the miniseries does not have merits and does not stand on its own, because to this movie's credit, it does. It does stand on its own. It's a more faithful adaptation of the Stephen King source material. Now, with that being said, this movie is a miniseries, and when you watch it as a whole, it's a 4.5-hour slug to sit through. The miniseries can drag and can be very, very boring in a lot of areas. There are a lot of scenes that could have easily been condensed. There are a lot of characters in this movie that you really didn't need. One of the things that I do like about the Kubrick movie is that he used characters that needed to be used. He condensed certain characters that needed to be condensing. He took away certain subplots that didn't really need to be explored. In this miniseries, pretty much Stephen King throws everything, including the kitchen sink, within this miniseries. Like, he really wanted to do a page-for-page adaptation of his book, and he did that. And for me, and listen, there's a lot of things in this movie that could have been easily condensed, could have easily been chopped down, and I think the miniseries would have had a much better overall pacing and overall better flow. Like, that's my biggest gripe with this movie, is the fact that it does throw so much in. It can be very, very bloated in a lot of areas. It can move really, really slow in a lot of areas, and it can be very, very boring in a lot of areas. This movie is not particularly scary, but it does have a good creepy atmosphere for the most part. It does have some genuine creepy and scary moments to it, not gonna lie. But it also does have some very good performances. I like Steven Weber as this version of Jack Torrance, which is more closer to its source material. You know, this is a Jack Torrance who's trying to keep his sanity together. This is a Jack Torrance who's trying to do good by his family. This is a Jack Torrance who is a broken man and has done things because of his alcohol addiction that he can't take back, but he's trying to mend the fences. I thought Steven Weber, all throughout this film, despite a couple of moments where his acting could be a little too over the top and maybe a little bit too stilted for my taste, he overall does do a very good job within the role of Jack Torrance, especially the everyman Jack Torrance that we want to root for and want to like. I thought Steven Weber was really good. Did a great job at portraying Jack Torrance as the family man, and did a great job at playing Jack Torrance when he's out for blood and wanting to kill his family once the ghosts of the Overlook Hotel take over him, mind, body, and soul. Steven Weber, all throughout, put in a very good performance. Rebecca D Mornay, who played Wendy Torrance, this is a better version of Wendy, more closer to the Stephen King source material. This is not the Shelley Duvall whimpering housewife Wendy who is afraid of everything. This Wendy has more of a backbone. This Wendy is not afraid to fight back. She's not afraid to stand her ground, especially when it comes to Jack. I appreciate that. And I thought Rebecca De Mornay put in a very good performance, and her and Steven Weber have really good on-screen chemistry with one another. They come across as a very believable couple. Courtland Mead, who played Danny Torrance. Now, Danny Torrance, overall, he's the focal point of the Shining story along with Jack. He's like one of the more major characters, so you got to get the right child actor, and this performance has got to get done right. Overall, I think Courtland Mead put in an overall decent performance. I think there are a lot of areas where his performance could be a little bit too janky in a lot of areas, and maybe a little bit too wooden in a lot of areas. But overall, I thought he was okay. He did okay in the role of Danny. All complaining aside, and I do got complaints about Courtland Mead in this movie. You know, his droopy lip was really distracting. His voice is just very. It's like Danny Lloyd from the original movie. He was a better Danny. Courtland Mead, he's good in Little Rascals. in that movie, and this he's serviceable. It's not the worst child performance you'll ever see. He is trying. I give Courtland Mead a lot of credit. He is generally trying, and I'm gonna just say he puts in a passable performance. Melvin Van Peebles, who plays Dick Halloran. I like Melvin Van Peebles in the role of Dick Halloran. It's a different performance than how Scatman Carruthers played it. This Dick Halloran, he's a little bit more, I want to say a little bit more of charismatic than Scatman Carruthers is. I think the relationship is much more drawn out with him and Danny in this movie, to the point where, to me, it kind of feels like an uncle-nephew, maybe grandfather-grandson type of relationship. And this version of Halloran does not die, as opposed to the Kubrick version where he does die. That's more close to the source material. So I appreciate that, and I enjoyed Melvin Van Peebles in this role. Supporting cast includes Elliot Gould, who played Ullman. This was a more active portrayal as Ullman. It comes across like as a snarky douche when talking to Jack at the beginning of the movie. I thought Elliot Gould, in that one scene he was in, he did a good job. Pat Hingle, who plays a character who was associated with the hotel, he had a minor role as well. He was fine. The actors who played Horace Dorrant and Delbert Grady, who are the two main ghosts trying to possess Jack, I thought they were fine in their performance as well. They had some genuine creepy moments to them, so I got no complaints with that. So, from performances wise, a lot of the performances are going to be very hit and miss. But overall, I thought all the actors, they tried. They genuinely did try, and I wasn't bored watching them in this movie. They were good. They filled their roles the best that they could. From an overall production value, I thought Mick Garris is a famed horror director. And he's also known as pretty much Mr. Stephen King when it comes to Stephen King book adaptations. This is one of his more polished movies. This is one of his more better directed movies, I would say. I think he uses maybe a little bit too much jump scares in this movie, to the point where it becomes comical in a lot of ways. He also uses certain things he also has certain moments where certain objects like doors will close and chairs start rocking back and forth. He tries to make it look spooky and creepy, but it doesn't come across like that. They come across as really forced. But I think as an overall job with this movie, I thought he did a good job. He did overall create a good atmosphere. He did make the Overlook Hotel feel like this foreboding character that just has a history all into itself. And we do get to see some of that in this movie. We do get to see key incidents that take place in this at the Overlook throughout the course of his history through flashbacks, because Jack discovers this old scrapbook. And instead of doing the play, he wants to write a book about the Overlook. So we get to see some of that. And I enjoyed that. And I thought Mick Garris did a good job at giving us some hints, but also keeping the lore of the Overlook pretty much to the imagination of us, the viewers. And I appreciate that. And also, just visually, it's a good-looking movie, as I said before. I got no complaints with Mick Garris as a director. My biggest complaints, as I said, is pretty much Stephen King adapting the book. He should have condensed a lot of things in it. This movie should have been cut down a lot, from 4.5 hours to maybe a little bit less. And I don't think you would have lost anything, to be honest with you. I still think you would have maintained most of the story's core, most of the core of the story, and just would have had a much better flow. Like, King could have still adapted his own book, but just, condensed certain things, cut down certain things that didn't really need to be there, and that the movie would have had a much better flow. This movie's biggest gripe is that its pacing is very sluggish. It relies too much on jump scares that are not that scary. There are a lot of dull moments where this movie just drags on. The family drama can be a little bit too melodramatic in a lot of areas, and it can take you right out of the movie. And you're pretty much waiting for, can we see the ghosts? Can we get some scares going? I mean, to be honest with you, the first two parts of the miniseries, they're solid. They're okay. Like, the first part is like the setup. The second part, we see Jack gradually going insane. And the third part is when Jack is totally insane. That's where the movie actually becomes a lot of fun. And you actually get a damn good climax when the boiler explodes and the Overlook explodes and Jack gets redemption when he fights the ghost back. No, I like all that stuff. That stuff is fun. The rest of the movie, it's hit and miss, but it does have some good things in it here and there. Those are basically my overall thoughts on the Shining 1997 TV miniseries. I don't hate this movie. I enjoyed it for the most part, which is why I'm gonna give it a solid 6 out of 10. It's a genuine, decent adaptation of the source material. It's inferior to the Stephen King book, but I give this movie a lot of credit. It does try to be its own thing, and I think this should be more appreciated for what it really is, and don't brush it off for being a cheap movie, because it's not. Because the people who made it because the people who made it genuinely tried to make it good, and in a lot of areas they succeeded, and in a lot of areas they kind of fell off the wheel. But you can see this movie did have some heart put into it, and that's the best I can pretty much say when it comes to the 1997 miniseries of The Shining. So yeah, those are my overall thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.